One last thing, I think they're going to be done though. So since the offseason is pretty much done for the most part for the Flyers, let's give them a little rating or grade scale of how they played out this offseason in terms of their moves, in terms of guys that got rid of. Are they that much better than they are before? Are they a lot better? Or are they worse than they were this time last season, going to this upcoming season? So I think Jeff and I are pretty much on the same page in terms of the moves that they made, in terms of our grading on it.
Yeah,
and
it
obviously
was overall very busy and interesting all season for Chuck Fletcher.
yes,
He, unfortunately for his case, was certainly forced. His hand was forced to make moves, because if he wasn't, he was going to get canned, in my opinion. And
definitely.
whether that's true or not, the pressure was there, because
And now the pressure
like
more
he
so.
had to do something.
I think there's going to be even more pressure on if they struggle again this upcoming season and don't do well. Then I think there could be even bigger changes coming towards the Flyers.
Honestly, I say probably late November, if not December, seeing how the team does, and if they have room to do anything big, or just in general, if for whatever reason it's not working, that might be the time where Fletcher just gets, there's the door. See ya. Now, here's the question though: is would you, if it comes down to Fletcher or Elaine Vigneault, who would you get rid of first, if and whenever the time comes?
In that situation, it's usually the coach that goes first. But for me, I do
right.
GM before coach.
Just because AB has been here way less, but more importantly, though.
Also, let's not forget that he is also the president. So in order for him to get canned for Chuck, it's going to have to come from Scott or whatever his name is.
You got his last name right, so you're getting better.
Unfortunately, in that situation, if they were still to struggle by the deadline, I wonder if our captain and Couturier would then be gone, because they'd only be a 1 year deals left and they'd be very valued by a team. I would have wanted that to happen, and I really don't want that to happen. But again, if they struggled, then desperate measures would have to start, unfortunately, happening.
Yeah.
But in terms of this offseason, I think, that's the worst case scenario. I don't think it's going to happen. But the first move that was made this offseason was getting Ryan Ellis. And obviously this offseason, it was very clear that Chuck focused more on the defense than the offense and forwards for the most part, in terms of what they added and everything. So the first move obviously was getting Ryan Ellis, that you traded Nolan Patrick and Phil Myers for. And I think that was a great deal. I think now you have your solid first pair defenseman. That was the one thing they were looking for this offseason in particular, as someone to be able to play with Provorov on a consistent basis, that you don't have to keep putting guys up there. The only issue with Ellis is he does tend to get hurt a good amount. That's going to be the only issue there.
I mean, yes and no, but like he's a big time warrior for sure. The last time I truly remember actually noticing him out was, so he missed time last year because of a shattered knuckle, not his shoulder. So that's the good news. The last time I remember Ellis truly getting hurt is that cheap shot from Corey Perry a couple years ago in the Winter Classic where he shouldered him, gave him a concussion. Yeah. But of course, he's missed time.
Yeah.
I'm not as worried. So I'll put it this way. I was a little bit worried because, again, just like a lot of people, there's that rumor going around about his shoulder. Luckily, he squashed that rumor right away. Said, I don't know where that came from in his introductory press conference with Philly, but he confirmed it was a shattered knuckle, which is better because that's much easier to heal than a shoulder injury, which I can attest. Shoulder injuries can happen a lot more common, and they can, just get worse and worse and worse and worse. So there's that. Overall, what would you give this trade grade wise?
I gave it an A. For some reason, in the back of my mind, even before this deal happened, and even going back to the deadline, I know we always said Ekholm was going to be the Flyer, but for some reason, I think it's going to be Ellis. Like for the longest time,
I had that
I don't know
feeling
I don't know why. Even before this season, was like somehow I see him being in a Flyers jersey.
Yeah. So I will say I preferred Ekholm, but I had that sneaky feeling in the back of my mind. Is like, it's if we made a trade, it would be Ellis. Like I get it, it makes sense. I would just prefer Ryan or Matthias Ekholm more, but I'm just as okay with Ryan Ellis. So no, that was definitely a huge start to Chuck Fletcher's offseason. I give it. I'm stuck. I'd say I'd give it an A / honestly an A plus because you essentially get not only a top 4 D man, you get you already have in a way quote unquote Phil Myers replacement because you don't have to worry about like where are we going to put Myers now in the lineup kind of thing. So and Myers is a young player. I think he's still going to be a good player. And for his talent, he could have gone anywhere from a first to a second or a third rounder. I think he's going to be just fine in so with that being said, though, so that was the first part I really enjoyed. And obviously best of luck to Phil Myers.
I know the Flyers have been struggling, but you got to handle your temper a lot easier, a lot better than that. I mean, really, we had to bleep you there because I mean, really,
I know I was dropping bombs left. For Nolan Patrick, his sake, it was no secret he no longer wanted to be in Philly.
He demanded a trade.
This is the best. So and that's true too. Yeah. This is the best case scenario for the Flyers.
And then they shipped him off to Vegas. So,
which even made even more sense because Kelly McCrimmon, his old coach and seniors, is their GM there. So that all when I first saw it, I was like, wow, that's crazy. And I was like, you know what? After like 10 seconds,
I was like, okay, I don't like getting rid of Phil Myers, but it's like, okay, I'm okay with it. I'm okay.
But again,
if it gives you the top pair defenseman you need, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, and honestly,
the only hole you then had at that point was who would he put with Sanheim, which
that eventually became solved, and we'll get that in a second. But I'll put it this way: overall, the reason also I give it an A plus at the same time, and stuck between A and A plus, you get rid of Nolan Patrick and that whole issue. You get rid of Phil Myers, but you instantly get not only your top 4 D man. You get a right-handed shot, which is very rare right now, especially in the NHL.
Also, it's not
specifically for one of the few teams that needs a right-handed shot, the Philadelphia Flyers. They get that right-handed defenseman, top 4 D-man in general. That's also a lot. Even better, they didn't give up a first-round pick or a prospect like Morgan Frost.
Also, it won't be like a Niskanen situation where you only have him for like 2 years, and one of the years he retires. He's signed for a long time, so you have him for a while.
He's 30.
He's.
I think he's here for the rest of his career.
Probably, yeah.
Unless for whatever reason, Flyers doing crap. Expensive playoff rental, kind of like a David Savard deal. That's the only reason I see him leaving Philly. Other than that, I think he's here for good. So. And also, I kind of hope that's the case too. I like what Ellis brings to the table.
I really do like his game. So I've always kind of been a fan of Ellis ever since.
I've enjoyed his game. Yeah. The next one that happened was the Rasmus Ristolainen deal, I believe.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. So the full deal, and I'll bring up the trade history now. It was Rasmus Ristolainen for Robert Haig, 2021 first round pick, which was 14th overall. They used that to select Isaac Rosen. Wasn't too upset with that pick by Buffalo. 2023 second round pick. My issue was right off the bat the fact that they gave a first round pick screams everything's wrong with this deal already. Now that it was 13th, it was supposed to be 13th versus 14th for some reason. because of the forfeit
Yes.
by Arizona's pick.
Yes.
But my issue was, if you were willing to trade your first round pick, especially 14th overall, and I get it, there are a lot of teams, 7 to be exact, according to reports, that 7 teams had offered a first round pick for Ristolainen, not just the Flyers. So that says a lot right there about other teams thinking what kind of value Risto has. But 14th overall, though, that's a huge trading chip. You just gave away your best trading chip for a guy like Vladimir Tarasenko. Now, in my opinion, is Tarasenko worth a first round pick? Yeah, 14th overall, maybe not, but he's certainly worth more of a 14th overall pick than Rasmus Ristolainen.
Yeah, he is. And for my sake, it's just banking on a lot. The dude's 26. So for me, I gave it a didn't even do that. I gave it a D+.
I gave it a D+, and I was also
And
trying to look at it realistically.
Yeah.
I said D+ / C-. The reason I gave it a D+ is you gave up first round pick, 14th overall. Like I said, you could have had it for a better trading chip. Analytically, and I don't understand analytics that great, but analytically he's awful. But the reason I gave it C+ though,
both stat
argue
regular stat wise, hockey wise, and advanced stat wise, he's not great.
Exactly. For example, he essentially boarded himself and knocked himself in the boards, gave up a breakaway while he's trying to get the pucks one game. So it's like.
And one of the issues, and this is why I kind of give it a D, and I'm very
C+. In my opinion, you give it C+.
With Chuck, is one issue he had was he felt we weren't getting it out of our zone fast enough, which is why you bring in Ellis, because he's good at that. Why you bring in Keith Yandle, he's good at that. Ristolainen's not good at that. He's not. No. He's not going to do that. He's not going to be very good at bringing out of your zone. He's just not. That kind of.
I will say though,
counteracts what you said.
He's not afraid to throw the body around.
Yes,
he's not afraid to clear players away from the net.
If we're saying, and I said it before when he talked about it when he first got him, my thinking hasn't changed. He's still a better defenseman than Robert Haig and Morin put together.
Morin,
yes, he's better than both of them, but he's still not great. I mean, it's also putting a lot of pressure on Sanheim if he struggles, which to kind of pull that pair going. And again, it's just one of those things where you're kind of banking on him having a bounce back year in a new home.
Yeah.
It's that plus another issue he had was, I guess, locker room was, I guess he thought was bad. So he has a good locker room presence, so that's why another reason.
Yeah, which is good.
Because I think people that play with him like him. It's just he's kind of a
for sure. Which is good though. He's certainly a likable player, which is good, and it's good to have different personalities on the ice like that. So I think that's certainly very, very important. One thing I will say is, he adds the size. He also adds the nastiness that the Flyers honestly need. And he's a right defenseman. And although we don't really see him as one, he's theoretically, a top board pair for the most part.
And even though
with this kind of team, you can argue it.
You also, in a way, in terms of the moves you made, you lost Ghost, who was your dominant power play guy. Now, these guys aren't as good as Ghost, but you pretty much replace them with 3 guys, because Ristolainen can play power play, Ellis can play power play, and Keith Yandle can absolutely play power play.
Yes. Yeah, so that's big.
And that was another issue they had too, was power play. So
yeah, but no.
And
so
obviously,
the last thing I was gonna say was,
okay.
Like on top of the nastiness, was the defining moment for me in what showed Chuck Fletcher on why he needed a player like Ristolainen. When you have, of all players, Oscar Lindblom stand up for his teammates and get in a fight when you're down 4-0. That tells you everything you needed to know about that team last year. The fact that the guy who just beat cancer had to stand up and drop the gloves, that's an embarrassment to the franchise. And right then and there, if I was Fletcher, if I was Giroux, I don't care who, one of the leaders on the team said, guys, the fact that Oscar just fought, no offense to him, why is he fighting? He should be the last player fighting.
Why is Sanheim fighting?
What's up?
Why is Sanheim fighting? Because he had the one fight that he didn't do great in, but he dropped the gloves too. These aren't really guys
I
aren't
couldn't
really
tell
fighters.
you.
It's you
couldn't tell you.
Kind of add that. Next move. So the next move they made was getting trading some cap away and losing Voracek and gaining back
Gostisbehere. Or no, I'm sorry. That was later. I'm sorry.
No, Ghost
you're
was
right.
Yeah, Ghost was right around there too.
Yeah, no, that was later. Wow. I lied. Continue. Sorry.
Yes. Actually, no, that happened before the Atkinson trade.
Yeah, no, so
which again, I'm not the biggest fan that we lost him. I get it, but I still think he's better than Ristolainen. I give that one a B minus, trading his salary away. But for the Atkinson one, I get it in the sense that he can do what Voracek wasn't really able to do that much, even though Voracek can put up a lot of points, and he did for the Flyers. He wasn't putting up a lot of goal totals, which Atkinson can do.
Yes.
Now the only issue is
shoot first mentality.
His contract is less by like $3 million or whatever, but he's got an additional year that Voracek didn't have.
Yes.
He's also 32, so in 2024, 2025, he may not be putting up the same numbers as he does this upcoming season. Right. That's just again, age just kind of happens. And you just kind of hope in that sense that he can still put up at least 15, 20 goals, which would still be great because at that point,
I think that's extremely reasonable. Not only that, but depending on who he plays with, I think he could get he were to think that's going to happen, but I think you could argue you could potentially get 2025.
Oh yeah, right away you could probably get that. Because I think he could probably be on like the first or second line. I think that's where he's going to be.
I think he'll be on the top 6 easily, but kind of going back and forth. I give an A+.
My guess is he'll start with Kevin Hayes because Kevin Hayes kind of had a good 2 cents in bringing some of these guys in.
Yes, it did. I gave it an A+ because yes, he lose Voracek, but you had way too many passing mentality first on the team. Chuck got a shoot first mentality player. I thought it was great. He is like 2.3 mil or so less cap hit wise of Voracek, and he is an extra year on his contract. Not only that, but you got cap back that you were able to use to go towards getting some more players, and also having some more space for Hart and Sanheim. So overall, right there, I think that was amazing because you replaced that Voracek with Atkinson. So I thought he did a great job.
Mm-hmm. Yes. But that was kind of it in terms of trades. And we talked about it last podcast, but it wasn't official until the next day. But they did indeed sign Keith Yandle, which I think both of us are very much a fan of that. And I still believe that the reason why he came is because he's going to play. So and also the moves that they made.
Kevin Hayes.
Yeah, and that too. But the moves they made definitely were so they can have at least on paper your 3 pairs. So essentially in one offseason, and my guess is Chuck just got tired of the revolving door that was the third pair defensemen. So he got rid of all the third pair defensemen he had. So he just did that instead. So now he actually has a decent.
He actually has his deep core.
He does. And if Braun, sadly, who was
honestly,
one of the more consistent,
you could say that for the Flyers.
It's been a while. Also, it's banking on Braun or Ristolainen and everyone kind of having bounced back. But if Braun,
but at the same time,
one of our more
if one of them doesn't pan out, you have Cam York.
which I think helps. I think I kind of would prefer him getting a little more AHL time.
Yeah.
Just because he didn't get a lot of NHL time after coming out of college. I don't think it hurt. It didn't hurt Provorov or Konechny any. It may have hurt Patrick some. You can make the argument.
Yeah. So with that being said, though,
I gave Yandle a B.
Where did I say Yans? I don't have this one up. I think
you gave him a B as well.
Yeah, we're in the same boat. Like, at this point, obviously, what you're getting Yandle, but at the same time, I mean, I'll take it. Like, you had more depth. You had another power play defenseman. I'm fine with that. So, yeah.
And in that sense, what you were saying before, Jeffrey, in terms of two offensive defensemen, he's going to be with Braun. He's a defensive defenseman. You now have an offensive defenseman. So they both know what the roles are going to be.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. So I like that one. Also, I never gave my grades for the Ghost one.
Oh, yes.
I give it a C+, if not B-. I understand the idea behind the trade. Probably gave up a little much, hence the C+. At the same time, you got a good amount of cap space back. You got the full 4.5 mil back.
Yep.
And that helps big time. So that is also partially the reason why I said B-. Sure, you probably get a little too much, but you got a crap ton of cap space.
Yeah, unfortunately, the other trades in terms of Ristolainen, Ellis, no cap is really, taken. So even though you lost a little bit by getting rid of Voracek and all of
and Haig.
Yeah, Haig, even though it was little, and what did I just say? Ghost and Voracek contracts, you got them away. It's still not that much in terms of what else you could do, which unfortunately brings you to the two free agent signings that they made, which was outside of Keith Yandle. The one being Martin Jones, which I don't think anyone was a big fan of, for 1 year, $2 million, which I gave a C-. And Nate Thompson is back.
I think I gave
You gave
Thompson
a D+ / C- for Jones, and you gave Thompson a D-.
Right. Yeah. I get the idea of Martin Jones. He's not like my favorite goalie, but Kim Dillabaugh plays a big role in why he came to Philadelphia. He was his former goalie coach in LA. They're obviously hoping to kind of get that energy going on what he was like in LA. So my only issue with a lot of these moves Fletcher's making, he's banking, and I mean full on banking, like on Nate Thompson, like on Ristolainen and Martin Jones. He's banking on those guys actually performing, saying, I'm putting a lot of trust in you. You got to step up.
As well as the young guys, because he didn't add a center. He added Thompson, but he's going to be fourth line center. He didn't add a third line center. So that's meaning either Frost is going to have to step up, even though he doesn't really want a young guy really doing that or whatever, or putting him that much pressure on him. But
I'll put this way, it's not as much pressure because it's only the third line.
It is. But for a guy who hasn't had a lot of hockey lately, it is.
I know. Same time, though, if you have a guy like, I was looking at the lines.
I mean, right now it's going to be
a guy
Vaughn. He's going to be third center if I had to guess.
Yeah, but even if Vaughn, JVR, and Wade Allison for your third line, if not Oscar Lindblom, that's a great third line. So that's the other thing. Where would you put Allison and where would you put Lindblom? Like, you can't put Lindblom on the fourth line.
Allison's going to be in the bottom six. I'd say third pair.
Yeah.
Or third line.
But then that would mean Oscar.
I think Lindblom's in the top six, truthfully.
He's got to be.
Because I see a lot of people putting JVR up high. I still think he's going to start the year in the third line.
Wait, I think he's going to be third. But at the same time, so as much as I hate the term the fourth line for a lot of players and whatnot, teams can have such a good team where you can have a first, 2 second lines, and theoretically the third line there because of how good their depth is. Where if any other team, that player would be on the third line instead of it being the fourth line or quote unquote 2 second lines, for example. So for a guy, so any of these guys like JVR and Lindblom, for them being on the fourth line, and even Wade Allison, even for example, if it's Nate Thompson, Lindblom, and Mac, yeah, that's probably a fourth line. But depending on the center, though, you could argue that's a third line realistically.
See, I think because Oscar has even a little bit longer, a little less, but a full offseason to kind of build back muscle, I think that's going to play a big role, because the thing that he was kind of missing because of not really being able to build it before, since being done his treatment, is the fact that before then he was really good at board play and actually being a PK and everything. So I think he's going to have a bounce back year. I wouldn't be surprised if to start he's in the bottom six, but I think he'll be top six again just because of that. And if he's on your fourth line with Thompson, then it's just going to be a typical fourth line, just guys that can be kind of annoying forechecking, which isn't the worst thing.
Right.
The fourth line isn't the fourth line it used to be, so it's not a death thing to be in the fourth line. It's you have speed here, and you can just kind of try to be a little more on the forechecking front, which is what Abikubo hopefully can bounce back and be able to do.
I hope.
But for me, I think the more I think about it, because I know people were before it came out that Holtby wanted to stay out west, that they would have preferred Holtby to Jones because they thought he would be more likely to have a bounce back. I don't really think either are going to be great in terms of bouncing back, because one, I never really thought Holtby was that great of a goaltender to begin with. And for Martin Jones, he actually kind of was not that long ago. Them going to the Cup Finals realistically wasn't that really long ago. And I think what'll help
15, 16, not 16, 17.
He's not a starter 16. Anymore. He's just not a starter. And with Hart here, he doesn't have to worry about starting like he was in San Jose. So he's going to be in a different role, and I think that's going to help him. Now, Hart also has to have a bounce back year as well. So if he can go back to the Hart he was the previous year, the year of the bubble, then I think you'll get a decent output of Martin Jones, because he's not going to be playing as many games, and I think that's actually going to help him more. So I don't think that's as bad. And Nate Thompson isn't my favorite person. He's not that great of the forward or whatever. But if he's your fourth line center, that's fine. He can help you.
I don't hate it.
And Tanner Laczynski, if he's playing a good camp, can easily beat him out. So it's not that big a deal. Worst case, he's your healthy scratch.
Yeah, and I'm good
and again,
with that
you didn't have a lot of cap to work with, so you just kind of get.
You got him, what, 800, 850K, something like that.
Yeah, 800,000.
800, good. Yes,
you didn't have a lot of cap to work with also having to sign Sanheim and Hart, so that's fine.
Yeah, so I'm not worried about that. So,
and who knows if
he
gets hurt and if Wisdom or someone else can come up and take their spot.
I would love to see Wisdom come up. If not,
Rooftop can finally become the defenseman center I was hoping he could be.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. Again, if he's actually has to bounce back, he's a fourth line center.
Yeah, maybe. I doubt it. He probably wouldn't be my first choice.
He wouldn't be my first choice either. But he's a winger. But yeah, you can.
Oh shit, that's right. Never mind.
Yeah,
but yeah,
there's a lot of wingers, unfortunately. So, or even Forster.
Like I said, I would love to see Wisdom first, if not then Tyson Forster, because he lit up the AHL last year too.
He did.
And also,
and now they're going to actually have a full
and Forster,
AHL
though.
season,
so there is this rule that for both of those guys, they play just enough of AHL games where they theoretically don't have to go back to the CHL this year. And that's huge. So the fact that they can keep playing the AHL is going to help their game remarkably. So we'll see how that pans out for them. And I think we'll see, good or bad, we'll see both, if not both, of Tyson Forster and Zayde Wisdom this year.
Yeah. But overall,
I would love to see that.
Overall, I give Chuck Fletcher's offseason a C. C+.
I would say C+. Yeah. C+, B-, because he did a lot.
He had good moves, but he followed them with
some
what are you kind of doing
choices.